Before we go anywhere in this video, I wanted to just give you the simple answer that I concluded at the end that I'm going to walk you through, which is this. I'm keeping the camera. I have worked through the audio issues, the audio lag I can solve basically whenever it shows up. You'll see lots of details of that. I love the ability to reframe my content into 16:9 and 9:16. It's worth it for me for that. And the combination of this camera with this grip for what I am doing with running hundreds of miles carrying a camera and the audio that I get that I can edit, and I get the audio feeling pretty good, what I consider to be good audio, it's clear, even on the run, makes this camera worth it for everything that I'm doing. But that's why I'm keeping it. Watch the rest of the video to decide whether or not you should. What up, and welcome to part 2 of the Insta360 GO 3 series. In this video, I'm going to be discussing, let's actually make sure that I have it right here so I can cover it all exactly. We're going to go over the memory, the battery, the screen, water and housing, audio, video, the beep, which really ticks me off, the color, which I'd like to see different, and accessories. All of that's going to be covered in the video. Let's dive into it. First off, I'm going to walk you through my workflow right now. So I just finished running 9 miles. I filmed all of the different options with this camera. I filmed all the resolutions, 2.7K, 1440, 1080p. I filmed them at all the different frame rates from 50 all the way down to 24. I filmed them at all the different stabilizations from max, high, standard, all the way to off. I filmed them in 3 different options, filming this way on the gimbal, I guess more than 3 because I filmed it like this, and then I also filmed it with the action pod in my hat right here, just like that. And I had it on the chest mount. Let me show you really quickly, just like this. That's where I had it. And I filmed for an hour and like 54 minutes. The camera was on the entire time. It died about 20 minutes after I finished filming everything. I left the camera on until it died. And essentially what it said is the action pod no longer had the ability to charge the camera disconnected kind of thing. However, within 10 minutes of plugging the camera in to this little USB charger, this battery pack, which I'm going to link on my website, the action camera, the GO 3, was fully charged again, like it's charged right now. And then after the last 10 more minutes of being plugged into the thing, the action pod itself is almost all the way full. So basically within 20 to 30 minutes of plugging into a portable battery bank, you can get another 2 hours of filming, which I think is really good. So I just wanted to share that with you as far as workflow goes. And essentially, after filming all of those options for 2 hours, I now have footage covering almost the entire range of choices that you might want for the Insta360 GO 3. And I'm going to make all that footage available. All of the raw footage, the free frame footage, the baked in 16:9, 9:16, all the frame rates, all the stuff. I also did all the different noise options, wind reduction, stereo, and directional throughout all of it. And I have a list of everything. I'll put that on the side here, but essentially it's all on the side. I'm not going to go through all that stuff, but you could pause the video and look at that because I've screenshotted it. So all of that is going to be available for download for you. I'm going to just offer it for like $10. And that way, if you're someone that really wants to look at all of the data and play with the footage yourself and see how it works out, you can see exactly how it goes. I'm going to put examples of the footage in here so you can see exactly what you're getting, but essentially this is it. I took the camera, had it in here just like this, and I ran with it. Actually, I walked first, and then I ran, and then I filmed this direction so you could see like me running and holding it, how the stabilization worked. And then I took the camera off, and I put it here, and I walked for a little bit, and then I jogged for a little bit, and then I moved it from here to here, and I walked for a little bit, and I jogged for a little bit, and then I ended the video. And basically, it was 2.5 to 3 minute videos for each frame rate, resolution, wind thing, all that kind of stuff, with the goal being to do a very extensive filming thing so that you could go download all the videos, play with all the files, and see kind of how it works. And we'll find out the files right now because I'm about to do that. This is exactly my workflow. So I take the camera, I bring it in to my computer, and I literally just plug it in to the computer. As soon as you plug it into the computer, it gives you 2 options, USB disk mode or charging only. So we're gonna go with USB disk mode. Now it should show up in the computer just a second. There it is right there, Insta360 GO 3. So I'm gonna click on the file. I'm going to click on the DCIM, and then I got the camera 2 here. So what I already have is I have a vlog template, which I'm showing you on the right side of the screen right there, you can see. So I have 9x16 and 16x9. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this file. I'm going to title this one Go 3 Part 2. I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to move this into my product reviews because that's where this is going. So this is how I do all of my file management system. I'm fairly well organized in all of my processes. What I will then do is take this file, this camera 02, normally it's camera 01, I changed the file number really quickly, but I will then just drag and drop this into here. Now, let's go ahead and check the file size really quickly. We'll see what this is. So this is 27.64 gigabytes of footage. So almost 2 hours of filming straight. The camera was on the entire time, and I filmed all the resolutions, 2 to 3 minutes of footage for each one of them, and that got us to 27 gigabytes. So essentially I had half of the memory card left to film with, which is nice to know. I can't imagine a situation where I would ever film more than that, and I did film in the 2.7K, the 1440, the 1080p, all of that stuff. I'm just gonna leave this on just cause. I'm gonna go ahead and drag and drop this camera 2 into this folder, and then we'll see, I'll tell you how long it took, and then we'll go to the processing stuff. It took 18 minutes to process all of the footage with the drag and drop. Now that I've got all the footage here, I can eject the camera. I don't need it anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit eject over here. Well, actually, sometimes let me go ahead and show you this really quickly. So if I go to the Studio app, which is what I always use, all right, and I go open files, it's gonna give me the option to open these files or pull from the camera, all right? And you would literally just click here and you click on that, and then you can click on all of the files here. We'll just go like this, and there's all the files. I can click open and it'll pull them all in. Since I moved the files onto my SSD, which is over here, it's a 2 terabyte SSD first, because this is where I edit all my videos from. I'm not gonna do this. I typically don't. I just move them onto the computer and then I go from there. So what that means is I can quickly get back to using the camera. I can wipe the camera and then move on to my next step. So I'll link the 2 terabyte SSD as well. I love it. It works really well. So I'm going to go back and open the files, but this time we're going to go to my SSD. Yep. And I'm going to go to my videos, and we're going to go to my product reviews, grab my stuff here, and grab my camera 02. All right. Now, I'm going to highlight all of these files, and all of these are available to you in the website. You can download them yourself. You can play with all this stuff exactly as I'm using it. We're going to go ahead and open those. And it's 78 files, but you'll see what happens because the way that the 360 films everything, it's combining some stuff, and it shouldn't be 78 by the time we're done. Let's see how long it takes to do this footage stuff. While we're actually here, let's talk about memory management as that's processing. You can plug the Insta360, the Go 3, straight into an iPad and download files from that. I checked it earlier. It's pretty easy to do. You just take the USB-C end of the USB-C, and with file management in the files section of the iPad, you can literally just pull the files off. So if you were somewhere that was far away from your computer or whatever, and you just needed to dump the files, that is an option. But I mean, now you're talking about buying an iPad. So yeah, the 64 gigabyte limit is probably never going to be a problem for me. But if you are someone that is regularly filming away from your computer, that's going to be an issue. All right, so we've got all the files here now. And what it's showing me is that files 31 through 38, these guys right here, are my pro files. Those were the free frame files. I filmed in 1440 and 1080p because those are your only 2 options. And I filmed at all the frame rates, so 50, 30, 25, and 24. I also filmed in all of the noise options. So we've got wind reduction, and then I've got stereo, and then I've got directional, and then I did wind reduction again for 24 frames per second. So there's 8 of those files. And those are the files that you can reframe afterwards. So like if I clicked on this number 31 really quickly, this is in 1440. Or it should be, yeah. I can click on this 16:9 and change it to 9:16, and you can see what I'm getting. All right. So that's essentially how the desktop app works. Now, what I'm going to do, or what I would normally do, is I would click on all of these, and I'm going to hit export, And then I'm going to choose what I want here. So I don't want to do it in 1440. I want all of these to be 1080 because that's just what I do. I'm not interested in that higher resolution for what I'm doing. And then what I will do is select 16:9 and I will choose my thing. So I'm actually going to go with 9:16 here and H.264, all of that stuff. I'm going to click change this. And I'm going to click on my 9:16, which is right here. That's going to give me the ability to just quickly offload all the files into the right spot. I went ahead and did the 16:9, and that took 12 minutes to offload all of that. So I can bank on the 9:16 taking another 12 minutes, just so you're aware. We're going to go ahead and do that really quickly. I'm going to hit open, and I do want to change this one over here now because I'm 9:16. I want to go 1080 again. And that's going to give me a 6.75 gigabyte estimated file size. So we're going to go ahead and start export. I always do flow state stabilization. You do have the option for the FPV. I've not messed with that. So just something for you to know from what I'm doing. I'm going to export all these files just like this, and I have no clue if this is going to cause the issue, like the audio lag. We're all going to find this out together. That's my goal with this video, is to give you the full experience. Now, while that's exporting, I'm going to talk to you about some other stuff really quickly. So one thing that I have a concern about is the screen. I would love if there was a way to rotate the screen and fold it back in. Maybe they can do that on a later version. But yeah, I feel like the screen is at risk. A simple solution to this would be to get a screen protector, and that would kind of solve that problem. Same thing with this front lens element, but obviously you can just replace that. So I do love that that is an easy fix. You can just buy another one of these and have it on standby for if you ever mess that up. This also has to be on the camera if you want to go in the water. I believe that a company could easily create a waterproof housing for this. I remember for the GoPro, there was one that was waterproof that had like a plastic cover on the back that you could still interact with the touchscreen. It was sealed, but through it. Obviously, you would lose the audio, but it would give you like more peace of mind with the whole thing, and you could still see yourself. Now, obviously, you'd lose the ability to flip the screen up. As far as like the actual action pod, the Go 3 in the water, I filmed some stuff with my kids. That was pretty straightforward and simple. It behaves basically like you would expect, so I don't have a lot to say about that. So I want to show you really quickly how you wipe the camera, just because it's honestly so fast, it kind of scares me. So all we're going to do is swipe here. I'm going to tap all of that. I'm going to select all the files. Now watch how fast this goes. And I've already got all the files on the computer. Let me double check and make sure that I got them all, because that would be absolutely terrible. But I do. So we're going to hit delete. We're going to confirm. And within 1, 2, they're gone. Like, that's how fast it went. All the files are gone. So one thing that I do love about this camera, and I'm going to talk about some of the positives afterwards, is how quickly it does actually move through. Like the responsiveness of this entire system is really good. So that's certainly a plus for this. Even though once you've kind of got your stuff figured out, you don't really need to do much. Like, I'm going to go back and change this to my Vivid, because that's what I film everything in, even though I didn't film any of this footage in any of the color profiles, because I felt like the flat would be the best for anyone that wants to see kind of what you could do with it in editing, since this is more for video editors if you're someone that's going to download the footage anyway. But understand that for the most part, I film everything in 1080p at 50 frames per second in the Vivid color profile, and that is how I run it. Now, the camera's been charging this entire time, and it's fully charged again. But within 20 minutes, it can be fully charged. So what I would say is, while you might have concerns about the battery issue, you got to film for over 2 hours straight before you're going to kill it. And that's got to be like dynamic filming, because if you're anywhere where you can have this thing plugged in, you can be filming and be plugged in. So I don't think battery necessarily has to be an issue. And if you're like filming for maybe an hour or whatever and the battery's dropped, but you have a break for a second, plug it in really quick to a power bank, you'll be good to go. So I think that there's reasonable solutions to some of these issues that I've faced. The only one that's the big issue for me right now is the audio, and we're going to find out. if that's still an issue. So here is the final word on the audio, which I'm actually really happy about. I filmed 60 video clips with the audio, and after looking through all of the footage, there are only about 5 or 6 clips where the audio lag takes place. I'm going to have those playing on the side here in just a second. But the main takeaway from this is that after filming all of that stuff and then exporting all of it and checking all the footage, the problem is not regular. So it seems like my initial experience was just like the biggest combinational fluke possible, where not only was there audio lag, but then it was compounded by the exporting process. So that's something for everyone to be aware of, is that if you're going to be exporting lots of footage, just break it up into smaller segments and try not to have your computer doing a bunch of other things. But sometimes you are going to get it baked into the footage. And what I'm going to be playing in just a second is the original raw footage, unedited, exported, all of that kind of stuff. You'll even see the circular stuff on it. And so you can see how the audio is off from the original. But again, that was only in 5 to 6 clips. And in those clips, that was my low light stuff. I was filming everything in low light. So if you want to access all of that raw footage just to see, you can check that out. But the reality is this kind of shows exactly what it is. So I hope this is helping you understand how it works, and it gives you a view of what the low light is like. So right now I'm filming in 1440 at 24 frames per second, and we're in the free frame mode, but we're still in low light. It's 8:30 at night, sunset's at 8:25, so we're about 5 minutes after sunset technically, kind of in that darker hour of the day. So right now we are in 1080p at 50 frames per second. It's just after sunset, and you can see how the camera is handling low light. I'm backlit right now, the sunset is behind me, so I'm gonna turn around and give you guys that. But I mean, this is what you get, you know? So now I wanna show you what happens when you turn on the low light stabilization. I turned that on, it darkened the footage, and to me, I would say that it is completely unusable. I would never use the low light stabilization after what I experienced with it. Maybe there's some stuff they can do in the future to improve that, but I don't think it's worth it. So here's that footage. All right, so the light is fading, and we're now in 1440, and we're at 50 frames per second, and we have the low light stabilization turned on, which is supposed to help with motion blur, but I don't think face priority is working anymore, and it looks like the camera is significantly darker than it was. So I'm not sure what the thinking was on this, but this is what I'm getting right now with the low light stabilization. So you can see the low light stabilization is just not very good. I think it really impacts the quality of the footage. And the next 2 clips that I'm going to show you are just simply about 30 minutes after I filmed the first 2 at the 1440 and the 1080. So you can see it's notably darker, and I walk next to a light at a portion of it, so you can kind of see how the light would impact in low light situations. But you'll also see how the audio lag is baked into this original footage. Now, it's not hard to fix, and since there's only 5 clips, that's something you could definitely solve without a ton of work. So I do think that the problem is not so bad that you can't work around it regularly, and people should just be aware that it may be in there when they're using the camera. Whatever that low light stabilization is, it is certainly impacting the brightness of the image, and I think that'll hurt you in low light. Wow, that's so much better now. That's amazing. All right, I am curious to see how that stabilization works out, but without the stabilization stuff turned on, yeah, it is. I mean, obviously with 24 frames per second, I'm much brighter in the light. So I saw this comment online in a few places that you couldn't get sound with the slow motion. That's not true. If you film at the 1080, 120 frames per second, you can actually still recover that sound. So right now I'm going to be doing some slow motion video for you so you can see exactly what it is, but I'm working with direct sunlight. So this is like best case scenario, but it will give you an idea of like what you can expect with the camera. We're going to be going underwater and all that good stuff. So let's get it. if you want to do slow motion in the horizontal aspect ratio, 16:9, then you have to rotate the camera, which is what I've done now. So this is slow motion. And the wind stopped, so I can do this a little bit slower. And you can kind of see now I'm in the shade right now. I'm not in direct sunlight, but we should have plenty of light for this slow motion to do fine. All right, and that's the slow motion. So you can see from the slow motion that you can easily use the footage in Final Cut or probably some other software to get it. And I wanted to show you that with my computer really quickly. So if we look at the footage right here, I'm gonna go ahead and mute that so you can't hear it, but all that I'm doing is scrolling along my timeline until I find the area that I want to slow down. So let's say I get to the spot right before the deck spring, and I'm gonna grab this guy right there. So I know that it's gonna start right here, and I just use my finger to get to the right spot. I don't know exactly what I have as my commands here, but I'm breaking it into timing stuff. And then all I'm gonna do is go down a little bit further till it ends. I'm gonna press break again for my timing. And then I'm just gonna change this to 20%, just like that. And now what I've done is I've created a slow motion clip right here immediately. And there it goes, slow motion. So this is something that you can easily do in post, and you keep the audio. I didn't process any of this footage in the app. I just pulled the file directly off the camera and put it onto my hard drive and then dropped it into Final Cut. Just so people know, that's how the slow-mo works, and that's the way that I would recommend using it, because when you do put it in the app, it takes the audio. I found that out, so just something to note. But that covers the slow motion. I think it's good stuff. It's a lot of fun. I like using it. All right, so let's talk about a couple of things that I would love to see Insta360 do differently for this camera. A black camera would be sick, just for the look. I know that GoPro has the black, but that's just something for me. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is the accessories. This thing is great. Like, it does what it's supposed to do. You can quickly put it there, and you'll see all the footage here that's going to let you kind of experience how that works. And then this one thing that I found out that was interesting about this that I didn't know is that you can actually change the sizing. Whoa. Oh, shoot. Wow, it's also hyper magnetic. But you can just slide these, and that changes where the thing is on your neck. For some reason, I didn't realize that when I was first using this, so that's a really nice plus to discover. But with the exception of all this test footage, I don't know how much I'm going to use the hockey puck thing. I think you would be better off getting a strap mount and attaching it to that, because when this is on your shirt, and you'll see it in the footage in a little bit, this thing, it flops around a lot, and maybe there's some work you could do to kind of fix that, but overall, I'm not sold on this thing right here. This thing just sat out in the Florida sun at 90 degrees for an entire hour while I filmed a time lapse, and I wanted to give you the exact information as I had it. I literally just pulled it out of the sun. So the tripod is pretty warm. It's not too bad. The camera the action pod part is at about 50%. I'll try and bring that to exactly where you can see it, okay? So that is the exact battery after it was fully charged when I started, after going for 1 hour, okay? The camera itself, I mean, it's warm, but it's definitely not like hot. It's certainly not like, it doesn't feel like it's been heating or overheating. So I know it was only a time lapse. I wasn't filming at 2.7K or anything like that, and I don't know what everyone else would experience filming, straight long periods of time. But what I can say is, at 90 degrees, sitting out in the Florida sun, my phone will tell me it's overheated and it has to stop doing whatever it's doing. So the fact that that is not happening to this says a lot about the camera itself. Honestly, I'm kind of becoming more and more impressed with this camera in almost all capacities as I put it through its paces. And now we come to basically the end of this video, where I'm going to wrap up with the time lapse and the hyperlapse and give you my final thoughts. The main thing here that I love about the time lapse is that when you're in the setting, number one, you've only got 1440 and 30 frames per second, or well, yeah, that's it. And then you've got your ratio right here, okay? But when you click on the interval, it tells you exactly what you're gonna get. So 2 minutes of shooting equals 1 second of footage. So if you know you've got 30 minutes to film, you can bank on, 15 seconds of footage, which is really nice, or the 10-second or whatever. The other thing that's really nice is when you start the recording, and we'll press it right here, you can see, oh, it registered my voice doing it, that's cool. It's calculating it for you. So as it records, you can look at this and see how much footage you've gotten as it's been going. And I really like that. I think that's a really nice bonus for anyone that's wanting to do a time lapse. It makes it really easy to guesstimate and estimate all of that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this guy off really quickly. And the last thing that I want to address is just the footage itself. I'm going to play that right here on the side as I'm talking to you. But the first video clip started in the dark. It was an entire sunrise. And you can see just how the camera adjusts as the sunrise is going up. I have not edited this footage at all. I didn't run it through the processor. I literally just took the file and then put it into Final Cut so you can see the full circle there. Obviously, you could reframe this for 16:9 or 9:16. And the same thing goes for the next time-lapse clip where we've just got bright daylight, as I was talking about earlier, where, the sun was shining on it, filmed for an hour, and that's what I got. So overall, very happy with that. All right, I think the time-lapse feature is a solid feature, and it's something that would be very useful for anyone that's trying to capture that kind of footage. The hyperlapse footage that I have playing for you right now is basically just filmed straight. So what I noticed is the file is basically exactly like a normal video file, but when you put it into the software, it modifies it and turns it into the abbreviated or shortened clip. So it's a huge file. It's like 6 gigabytes. I can't even put that raw file into the download options because it was so big. So just something to be aware of there, that essentially all you're doing is filming straight for that time period. And then when you put it into the studio app or whatever app you're using, that's when it's going to do its magic and kind of shrink it down. But that's also something you could do with just normal video software if you just filmed for 12 minutes and then took the footage and put it in. So I might say that in that situation, maybe just do a time lapse instead of a hyperlapse, but it's something that you have, it's something that they built in, and it's not too bad. One thing that you'll notice about the footage is it kind of does this little wobble. You can see the car like it's kind of like almost surfing or like a boat floating. And I don't think that's a big deal, but it is something that's there, and you can see that in the wide angle and the 16:9 or the 9:16. So that's just stuff for you to be aware of. Now, let's talk about my final thoughts. So this is it. This is the end of my Insta360 GO 3 journey. I have no intention of making a third video on this thing, but I am keeping it. As I said at the very beginning of this video, the reason that I'm keeping it is because it fits my use case scenario. I'm running hundreds of miles with this thing. I have already done 40 to 50 plus miles with this thing, and it fits perfectly in my hand. It is perfectly balanced with this specific gimbal, the Switch Pod. So when I'm running with it, it doesn't impact anything, and I love that. I feel like I've come to a place where I can edit the audio, not dealing with the lag issue, but just like the quality of the audio, where I'm happy with it. The video quality is good enough for me. Most of the time I'm filming in daylight, and no matter what, I'm always getting enough quality that it works for what I'm doing. So I don't have a better option for what I'm doing with the running. The free frame is perfect for getting the multiple aspect ratios, which is what I want. I film everything in 1080p anyway, so that works out. Maybe I'll jump to 1440 in the future, but file sizes are huge, so that's an impact for me as well. Overall, I believe that this camera lets me do what I want to do, and anytime the audio lag shows up, I will just deal with it and fix it. And that's my final thoughts on the camera. I hope that after everything that I have covered, you've gotten whatever piece of information you needed to make a buying decision. If nothing else, you can obviously go to the downloads. I'm going to have that kind of scrolling on the side here with a little bit of, I think it's that way actually. I don't know which way it turns out, but whichever side it is, I'll have a screenshot so you can see everything that you get when you do the downloads. After I'm finished with this little video right here, I'm going to play 2 versions of the video, one completely unedited with the full circle just as it comes raw out of camera, and then the second one edited with audio and a little bit of light video editing as far as like color grading and stuff like that, nothing heavy because it was filmed in a flat profile, just so you can kind of see the 2 differences just straight out of camera with a little bit of editing, and that way you're going to get the basic idea of exactly what you will be getting if you choose to go buy the downloads. I don't want anybody going and buying the downloads and then being surprised at what they got. Like, you're getting exactly what you're about to see. So, except obviously in the raw format, so higher quality, and you can put it into the whole Studio app and edit that stuff and feel it out for yourself if that's something that you want. At the end of the day, I've decided this camera does what I need it to do. It fits the uses for me, and so that's what I'm going to have. I'm going to keep it, and I'm excited about continuing to use it, and I'm ready to get back to filming and doing running vlogs, because this was the most intense camera review, product review I've ever done, ever. And I don't know if I ever want to do one like this again, but it's been 2 full days, and I'm going to finish with a pun because I didn't do one at the beginning, and it's this. Why are digital camera reviews always so positive? It's because there are no negatives. So, I hope you have a great day, enjoy this last bit of footage, and I'll see you in the next one. All right. We are now filming in free frame video mode. We are filming at 50 frames per second in 1440p, and the stabilization doesn't matter. The linear, ultra, whatever, it doesn't matter. The mic is wind reduction, and let's go. So, this is what we got. Personally, this is my favorite video mode, so it's what I use all the time. All right, let's spin it. All right, so we're now on the head mount in the free frame video, and I have the screen set for 9 by 16 by 9, so you can see it that way, but for the next videos I'm going to switch it to 9 by 16. It doesn't change the end video, it just shows your different view, that's all. So here we go. All right, and let's get this guy down here. There we go. Once again, directional mic. The main thing to note here is we're in 1440 and we're at 50 frames per second. So, you know, kind of get to work with whatever you got there. And I'm still in the flat color profile, it's what I'm going to stay in. But I am curious to see how the flow stabilization does with this stuff. So let's jog it out. All right, we are now filming in free frame video mode. We are filming at 50 frames per second in 1440p, and the stabilization doesn't matter. The linear, ultra, whatever, it doesn't matter. The mic is wind reduction, and let's go. So, this is what we got. Personally, this is my favorite video mode, so it's what I use all the time. All right, let's spin it. All right, so we're now on the head mount in the free frame video, and I have the screen set for 9 by 16 by 9, so you can see it that way, but for the next videos I'm going to switch it to 9 by 16. It doesn't change the end video, it just shows your different view, that's all. So here we go.
All right, and let's get this guy down here. There we go. Once again, directional mic. The main thing to note here is we're in 1440 and we're at 50 frames per second. So, you know, kind of get to work with whatever you got there. And I'm still in the flat color profile. It's what I'm going to stay in. But I am curious to see how the flow stabilization does with this stuff. So let's jog it out.